Welcome back to our captivating conversation with incredible Radhika Mohta. In our last video, we delved deep into fascinating world of cultural change in relationship. If you missed it, make sure you catch up. Today we are tackling an equally important and sensitive topic, finance. We are diving into the resistance many couples face when sharing financial details, doing investments together, big or small. We are venturing into a different, equally vital territory, mental health in relationship. Get ready for conversation about the science, the stigma, and the power of support. Stay tuned for conversation that could transform the way you look at finance and immigration application for family visas. So Radhika, if you look culturally and globally, we don't ask the question to the prospect and what is your earnings? And either they have to be earning £18,600 or they must have a savings of £62,500 for a period of 6 months before they can apply. So meeting this financial requirement is so important. And when they come to me for a consultation, and mostly if they are already married by then, we realize that the applicant or the sponsor is not earning that kind of earnings in the UK. That comes as a shock, because from there you can't file an application. You really have to wait, fix this, and then go to the next level. And that requires time, because you cannot fix 62,500 overnight. Even if you do that, you still have to wait for 6 months. That time, there's a lot of pressure on the applicant and the sponsor, because imagine, as a newly married, they want to really be together quickly as possible. And as an immigration advisor, you want to help them. You can't really do much. What are the tips that you would give them to go through with something like this?
Wow. So one, of course, globally, finances are the number one reason for divorces. On a surface layer, it looks like it's a conversation about finances, but it's like way deeper. It's about your history with money, how you grew up, what your family background was. Did you have pocket money or not? What did money mean to you? How could you spend it? How could you save it? And even now, what does it signify to you? What kind of a lifestyle you can have with that money? So a lot of that. What I would strongly suggest is, of course, to consult someone like you and, do it before marriage and other things come into picture, so it gets easier. The other thing, what I also am thinking of is of the couple of topics that I strongly advise people to talk about. Finance is definitely one of them. And the reason for that is like Gottman Institute of Research would say, or Dr. Julie and John Gottman, that it's so important to understand each other's core values, lifestyle, goals, to be able to understand where this person is coming from. So again, comes down to communication on, have you talked about these topics before? Have you talked about whether or not you have a student loan? Have you talked about whether or not you received pocket money? If you did, what did you do with it? Did you start a small startup? Did you, spend the entire money on movies? Or did you buy Lego games with it and create your own Lego club? Like, what did you do with it? And then, of course, are you making investments? I understand people may not want to disclose exact numbers, which is completely okay. I don't expect you to give me your income tax returns of the last 3 years or your last 3 pay slips to be able to tell me, look, I'm solid. And again, you're going to attract gold diggers if you keep your entire finances open. Having said that, please talk about these things, because these topics help you understand each other better. But to bring in a fire extinguisher after the fire has already broken out is, I think, a bit too late.
Yeah.
So the work needs to start much before.
Leading this to more deeper in terms of conversation, sometimes, Radhika, I see they have already spoken about it. And later, I don't hear from the groom side or from the sponsor side it could be the bride as well. The sponsor would be the right term here. Sending the paperwork, especially the finance paperwork, and you're waiting and you're wondering, why would you not be sharing? Because we've discussed this, isn't it? And then there's so much of follow-up that everybody of us is doing, and suddenly the sponsor's gone quiet on sending out the paper. Where do you think this is leading to? I mean, isn't that the fundamental of the relationship?
Falguni, based on my understanding, it's a matter of trust. Do you have 200% of both your feet in, and like, are you into that relationship? Because if you have 1 feet out, 1 feet in, you're still contemplating about whether or not to make that move, whether or not to relocate with this person, whether or not to sponsor them. But if you're 200% in and you know that this has to happen, and you trust them to be able to reveal your finances, your bank account statements, or whatever those documents are that are needed, then should be good to go.
Going deeper with finance as an issue, sometimes it's very shocking to know that, after 2.5 years of being in relationship as husband and wife, they still lack evidences of being together when it comes to finance, like joint bank accounts, investments together, and things like those. And sometimes the applicant doesn't even know on what the sponsor is earning. Why is there a gap when it comes to finance?
Interesting. So it could be majorly attributed to two things. One is the fact that, culturally speaking, we in India have had finance as a not so talked about issue. It's quite a taboo to be talking about finance, sex, and these topics at the beginning of a relationship. And that's the reason you don't go around making a prenup to divide your assets and liabilities before your life's collective balance sheet starts, or you don't go around asking for each other's ITR or each other's Bahi Khata or all of that. The other thing is the fact that when it comes to relationships, who are the role models that we are looking up to? Because we end up imitating the people that we are looking up to. So when it comes to cricket, Sachin hit a 6 and every other gully cricket boy thinks they can be Sachin. But when it comes to relationships, who are the people that you can look up to and say, hey, they have a happy, healthy, sound relationship and I want to be like them? If you have them and they are in a happy, healthy relationship and you're imitating that, great. But if they don't, and you have these parents, primary caregivers, or whoever you look up to, you tend to behave that way in your relationship. And therefore, if they have had a certain equation with, this is the monthly expense that you get as a woman to be able to run the house, or we only do one vacation in the entire year, or the man of the house is going to work and the woman of the house is going to stay at home, or the wife is always going to cook because kitchen is her department, or whatever that is, then, well, it shows.
So Radhika, this is very good insight into how you have brought it up to say it could be a reflection of the way they've been brought up. When we do immigration, we're not only stuck to only proving finances, but we also have to prove that there's a relationship,
Right,
which is genuine and subsisting. And it's sometimes, again, shocking to see that, they don't have proofs of relationship being genuine and subsisting. There's photographs, there's travels, there's money exchange, there's investments in joint names, and they don't have that. They will be stuck for extension applications. So why do you think that, if you've been in a relationship for 2.5 years and you still haven't reached to that stage, where do you think the gap here again is? Is that again to do with the reflections or their past?
Right.
What do you think?
So I do think two things could be happening here, Falguni. One, culturally, there are definitely differences. So despite the evolution of technology, how much we have been empowered by social media to amplify whatever is happening in our lives, people are still not as comfortable with camera and putting out about their relationship on social media. And then the other thing is also, maybe you are comfortable traveling for every long weekend and I'm not, or maybe there are people who believe in spending on travel as a category. So they want to take 4 vacations a year. And then there are others who are like, hey, just once in 2 years when we actually want to go to our hometown for Diwali. And not as often because we are trying to save for our next home or our big car purchase or pay off some debt or whatever it is. Like, I definitely know of people out of the 5 love languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. I definitely know of people for whom receiving gifts is not a love language at all. They might believe in quality time, acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation, but not in receiving gifts. Maybe a digital rose emoji, but that's about it. And then the second part to it, which is trust. So, do people trust each other to be able to have those joint bank accounts, to be able to have those joint assets, to be able to make that disclosure about finances?
Right.
That's how I'll sum it up.
So, Radhika, this has been an interesting conversation, but we look at a little darker side of the relationship where, there is elements of domestic violence, there's abuse and stuff around that. In UK, you can file this as an exceptional application under domestic violence rules that are in existence. But 9 out of 10, again, we miss on evidence. And the evidence are generally in form of reaching out to a GP or complaining against it to the authority like police and taking social workers' help, etc. So where do you think that, these educated applicants are not able to voice it? What is it that stops them? Personally, I think it is important to let people know you because you're the victim. Yeah. And secondly, what can be the worst? Maybe you have to come back to your home country, but then you are qualified enough. If you can find job in UK, you can find job in your home country as well. So it's not the end of the world.
Absolutely.
I've seen cases where applicants have tried to commit suicide as well, but not complained. And it's very, very disheartening to understand that thought process which they have in their mind on why would they not raise voice against what's happening to them.
So, 2 things that have come up time and again on this Falguni. One is culturally, we are conditioned to operate a certain way. And more often than not, our young girls are conditioned to obey, to respect elders, to not rebel, and to surrender more often than not. That's one. And then the second is the fact that anytime we are operating from a scarcity mindset, FOMO, fear of missing out, and thinking that, this is the ultimate option. This is my final bet. I don't stand a chance after this. So if I let go of what I currently have, what if I don't find somebody next? What if I don't land where I wanted to? What if the next person is equally bad? And a lot of those what ifs come in the way of having that courage to be able to call it out. So you know what? The way they are being treated right now is how they deserve to be treated. And that narrative which they are telling themselves is a combination of what the world around them has told them, the story that they have bought and now believe in, and unless there's an intervention to break that loop and say, hey, you're amazing, why are you putting yourself up through this? Unless that happens, it's difficult to break that loop.
In my experience, and I would like to share this, is in one of my clients' case, she was actually a vet, which is, you think, is very highly qualified, and she's working here in India. And she went through domestic abuse when she was in the UK. And we reached to a stage where, we could for sure confirm that this is going to end, and if she does want to stay there, she had to do domestic violence application. When we spoke to her, we found out that there was a series of incidents that kept happening to her, but she didn't voice out to it. And to your mind, you're thinking that she's a highly qualified person here, and she knows her rights, and she is in a country where there's a lot of support to a woman. Why would she not voice this out? And finally, she was actually asked to leave. So I think, rightly what you're saying is, when you tell her that she's amazing and she doesn't have to go through with this, is when she got that courage to come back home, to say, no, I can have a better life.
Absolutely. Like, you need to know that there's a place which is warm, welcoming, safe, open to you, no matter where you go. Like, I remember when I got married, and my parents were very clear. They're like, we have 2 daughters and you're the elder one, and just because you're getting married doesn't mean this place isn't your home anymore. So at any point in time, the doors are open, we are here, and you have all the right to come back. And that's all it takes. You need to know who your people are, and you need to know that you are going to be welcomed no matter what, and not being judged and not being told on, you could have done that and this could have worked out this way. And yeah, life is about also having those second chances.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you see, one more aspect to this particular category of application that we see here is second marriages. And you're giving yourself a second chance. You're trying to look up in the life, but sometimes you also have these elements where you have children involved from previous marriages. And again, the whole bit when you do in cross-border marriages, especially, and you're entering a new country, has been your experience when you have been advising, or what advices would you give to our viewers?
Sure. So I've definitely had I consult people who are never married or who are divorced. I don't work with people who are separated, because A, they are taking their own time to go through the healing process and rediscovering themselves, and B, there are legal aspects involved, and the divorce is yet to come through. So in the case where people have been divorced, I've definitely seen people work on themselves. So either they've been through therapy, or they have really spent a lot of time in reflecting upon what went right or what went wrong, and what could they do better, and what is it that they are truly seeking, and just addressing that part and letting go of the baggage really helps, because otherwise they would be projecting it onto the next person. So that's one, to be done and dusted with whatever it was. And then the second part, to be able to open yourself up to all the possibilities and all the opportunities out there, because when people have clarity on what they're looking for, and they also show up in the right places among the right people, it's just magical. Like, I remember this one person I worked with. She is in her early 30s, lives in London, UK, and she's a lawyer. And her dad, sitting in Bangalore, reads a certain publication where my work was featured, and he took a picture about my work and sent it to her, and she reached out, and then we worked together. And she had already been through a divorce, so she was slightly skeptical about whether or not she'll find the next person. Is it too late because she's in her early 30s? And what about her career? Will she have to give up on it, because what if the other person is not accommodating? And will she be able to find somebody culturally compatible in London, because she does intend to continue being there and for her career growth? So we addressed all of those things, and as I speak, she is on the path to finding her person. She's making a lot of progress there.
So Radhika, this whole conversation has been so very exciting. It's so much of learnings. And is there any last words of wisdom that you would want to share with our viewers? Anything that you want to
Sure.
give them?
So this is one thing I keep saying, Falguni. You are the cake and anybody else can only be the icing. So you do you, show up for yourself, consider yourself date worthy and lovable, and go find your people. The world is your canvas.
Very nice. Very, very nicely been put up. Thank you so very much, Radhika. And yeah, for any kind of an immigration assistance, Smart Move to UK is always available to advise you, to navigate you. And if you have any further questions around the conversation that we had, we'll be happy to address that. Leave your comments or your question in the comment box, and we'll be happy to address that there. Thank you very much for watching this video, and till we see you next time. Bye bye.